Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. David, it's so great to have you back. What's new?
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, it's good to be back. I can't believe I missed 3 episodes. Stuck with the case of the shingles. So I'm gonna put a shout out to everybody out there that listens to this or watches this. Go get the shingles vaccine because that was awful, and I'm still kind of in pain from it. So I'm glad to be back and looking forward to our meeting our new guests. And this is our last guest of the year, right?
Yeah, last guest of the year. It's a big episode.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry that you had shingles, David, but as an important public service announcement, so hopefully everybody's paying attention to that.
Yeah, you don't want to go through what I went through, people. So definitely get the vaccine.
Definitely do. And today on Deconstructing Data, we're thrilled to welcome on Samuel Thimothy. He's the Chief Growth Officer at oneims.com, a seasoned strategist specializing in impact, go-to-market strategies, and RevOps implementation. Welcome to the show, Samuel.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
we gotta make this exciting. It's our last one of the year, right?
So that's right. For sure. Well, we're really excited to have you here. Why don't you kick us off and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about you, your background, and what led you to OneIMS and what you guys do for your customers.
Yeah, well, obviously you've given my name already. Samuel Thimothy currently serves as the Chief Growth Officer at OneIMS, but OneIMS is actually my baby as well, because my brother and I started this. Come January 3rd, it will be 18 years at this company, building it and growing it from our parents' extra spare bedroom 18 years ago. And the problem we're solving for our customer is the biggest problem most businesses have, is how do you acquire customers consistently and predictably? That's the black box, right? That's the biggest question most businesses have. That's the challenge that we undertake for our customers, mostly in the B2B space. So they tend to fall in like B2B technology, professional service, and sometimes in the manufacturing sector as well.
Very interesting. And that kind of kicks us off right into our first topic. So the importance of data and the growth formula. So you guys have a growth formula, and I would love to hear from you about it. Can you kick us off on this topic, Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? How do you grow a business? And you can complicate this. I tend to be, people say that I have a tendency to make things overcomplicated, but at the end of the day, growth is very, very simple. It's acquisition and retention equals growth. So if you can figure out how to consistently acquire customers and how to retain and grow those accounts and customers over time, then you're growing, right? That's the magic. But then you have a lot of levers that you have to pull in terms of what goes into the customer acquisition side, and then customer retention and nurturing and growing all those accounts. And we can get into some of those specifics. At the end of the day, data is in all of it, right? Without data, you don't know if what you're doing is working or not working. So you have to be measuring what you're doing so you can optimize what's not working.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the formula is simple, but and elegant in a way, right? So let's break it down. Talk to us about, let's start with acquisition.
Yeah, so I think customer acquisition, everybody knows, and we all talk about it, right? Like what goes into acquiring customers. But I think before you even jump into understanding what goes into acquiring customers, you kind of also need to understand like what is the customer journey looks like, right? So if you think about customer acquisition, the customers are going through a purchase journey. They're all making decisions on what to do and what not to do. So most people probably are aware of the customer journey, like, hey, unaware of the problem aware, solution aware, and then consideration and decision, which is kind of like a linear process somewhat for a customer purchase journey. But if on top of that, you can layer a little bit of what we call like a demand pyramid. So if you think about your total addressable market, at any given moment, only about 1 to 3% of your total addressable market is in an in-market buying scenario, like meaning that they're in an active buying cycle. They're looking for a product or service that you have to offer. But the 97% of your total addressable market is not in an active buying cycle, which means that they're not even thinking about you or your product or services because it's not a priority. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the need for your product or service. So if you think about the customer acquisition side of the equation, you need to be solving for those two scenarios. One scenario is, well, what are we doing with the 1 to 3% of the in-market audience? are we getting found when they're actively looking for us? We call that capturing the existing demand. Like people who are actively looking for you, you have to make sure that you're getting found so you can serve those in-market buyers. But that 97% of those people who are not thinking of you, you have to figure out what do we need to do to create awareness, right? That awareness is obviously goes down to making them problem aware. Somebody who may not be aware that they actually even have this problem, figuring out how do you get them to understand that they have a problem so they can name the problem. And then they need to become solution aware, which means like, hey, do they understand the problem and do they know what options are available for them to solve that problem? And then ultimately moving into that consideration stage that they know you as the brand, right? So the awareness of the problem and awareness of you as a company is also part of that equation, right? So if you do those two things well, you can solve for that customer acquisition side of that equation.
That's a great point. So problem and solution, that's the key to acquisition, right?
Yeah, so understanding that problem solution, and then also making sure that we're getting found when they're actively looking for you as well, for that in-market audience who are looking for a product or service that you have to offer.
Okay, so I acquired my customer. How do I retain them? You know, that's the key, right? Especially you're trying to build value in a company. If you can't retain your customers, then you're constantly losing value, right? So we have to retain those customers in order to retain the value.
Yeah, so the retention is it's a little bit broader than just the retaining of customers. We kind of call like the managing and nurturing leads and managing and nurturing customers, because the getting people into your to your business and getting them to come to your website and converting into an inquiry or a demo request or requesting to talk to a salesperson is one half of the problem. But once they are there, you need to figure out, well, what stage of that buying cycle did they convert? How aware are they of our product or service? Are they sales ready? Meaning like, are they ready to have a sales conversation and make a purchase decision now? Or are they kind of premature in their learning process and in early stage of kind of trying to figure things out, right? Because at the different stage of the buying process, they can convert on our website. So depending on that, you need to have system and process in place to segment that contact. You have to figure out, well, if they are inquiring about a product or service, how can we best segment this person? Could this be based on the industry that they're from, or a job function that they fill, or the company size? There's a lot of different ways of segmenting that person into proper segmentation criteria, using the proper segmentation criteria, and then possibly nurturing them across multiple channels. I mean, we're all familiar with using email, but you all understand how complicated it is to get an email into someone's inbox. So relying heavily on just email alone is no longer sufficient. You have to be leveraging other mediums, like possibly retargeting them on other platforms, and even using some traditional mediums like direct mail, right? So segmenting the contact and nurturing those leads until they become sales ready, and then having them have the sales conversation and make the purchase. And then once they do have that purchase decision done, now you have to figure out how do you best nurture those customers, because most often, there's the buyer's remorse. You have to make sure that you give them the best customer experience after the post-purchase, right? The post-purchase experience, making sure that they are adapting the product or service that you just made them buy, and also providing them insights and training and guidance on how to maximize the investment they just made, right? So if they are buying a software, making sure they have customer success solutions that are made available, not just personnel, but also training resources and educational material and other tips and tricks and templates, anything else that you can provide to them in a timely fashion to make sure that they get time to value real rapidly, right? So they're leveraging the technology or service or product that they purchased. They're leveraging that to get to the value that they were looking to gain as fast as you can, right? And then over time, they become advocates and they will promote you and your product or services and give you referrals. So that is the retention side of the equation. If you don't do a great job in managing and segmenting your contacts and customers, and do a great job in nurturing them across the entire customer lifecycle, and then you're doing a poor job in retaining them, and that affects your ability to grow your company.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that we have found over time is that one of the keys for us to retain customers has been becoming as embedded as possible within their sort of day-to-day operations. And whether that means us becoming a resource to them. So, it's almost like, Zappos's customer, you remember their old customer support policy of answering any question, doesn't matter what it is. If you wanted to know who has the best pizza in the San Francisco area, they would tell you. It doesn't matter, whatever it was. we try to become embedded as much as possible as advisors to our clients as well. You have any questions, data needs, whatever it is, even if we don't do it, we're happy to help you and advise you because of our experience and our expertise that we have on our team. That and the use of our APIs, and the more embedded we become in sort of their day-to-day operations, we find that it helps retain those customers as well.
Yeah, I'm reading a book actually by Sandler. It's called Selling Services. They talk about the difference between just a vendor versus an advisor role, because they said if you're an advisor, you have the seat at the table, you're having strategic discussion with the leadership, and you're able to provide a lot more value to the organization and not treat it as a vendor and be replaced when the time is not right? So you're the first to be cut when there's some sort of a budgetary constraints or anything like that. So being that advisory role is certainly a goal, but it's not always a reality, right? But like you said, you're in a technology and a platform space and a data provider, so you're also have some other insights that they may not have just by having subscription to your software. You have thousands of customer data. You can provide a level of insights that they can just have by just subscribing to your software or technology. So any sort of opportunity you have to be that advisor, be that strategic advisor to your customer is an opportunity for you to engrave yourself into their organization for sure.
You become the thought leader and you close the trust gap. That's really great feedback. But let's go into this second topic. So data-driven content marketing. I'm really interested to hear about this one. So the intersection of content marketing and data analytics. Can you kick us off, Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look back about probably 15, 20 years ago, we were living at a time that I would call like a content deficit. There just wasn't enough content being produced in all these different areas. But look now, 15, 20 years now, we're in what we call a content surplus. There's just so much content being produced everywhere you look, right? Everyone is a media company. Here we are creating content. So what that means is, you can go create content any minute, right? You have so many ways of creating content, but at the end of the day, if you're not creating content that really resonates with your target audience and it's going to speak to their need, you're just wasting time. You're just creating content for the sake of creating content. So when it comes to, data, what we really recommend to our client and how we empower them to do a better job in content production is first and foremost, really getting to know their persona, their ideal customer profile, understanding their pain point, what keeps them awake at night. What are the challenges that they're trying to solve? Where are they? What kind of questions are they asking Google? Where do they congregate for that insights that they want from their peers in the market? All of those insights are things that you need to have before you go jump into creating a content. You want to make sure that the content you're producing is going to speak to the persona, to the ICP, address the pain points, and position you as a subject matter expert. So it's not just about, hey, how many views I have gotten, how many comments I gotten. Those are just feedback on how relevant your content was to your audience. But before you even jump onto creating, you have to do that prerequisite work. That's what's going to determine the success of your content production. So that's what we mean by content, content marketing driven by data.
Yep. And that's why we're here, right? I mean, our goal with this podcast is to create content that, serves value to our listeners and to our client base, obviously, and having great guests like you. So,
yeah, and meets them on the platform they're on natively. So we're going across channels right now. Yeah, that's good stuff. So what do you think there's a concern right now for marketers because of this surplus of content out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with, if you think back, right, 15 years ago, there was no concept of AI is able to produce content at scale than human beings can ever. I mean, if you look back at all the challenges most organizations had when it comes to marketing, was they just didn't have enough resources internally to be able to produce content. Now with all the AI driven tools, anybody can produce content and anyone can just put out content. So the need for being even more relevant and authoritative and useful to your end customer is more important, right? Because people want to have authentic and useful and relevant content for that is going to solve their business needs or answer their challenges. So yes, there's a struggle it's a real struggle that most businesses have, is figuring out how am I going to produce content that's going to be useful and relevant, and how am I going to do it at scale, and how am I going to also do it so that it's actually being consumed by my target persona and customers wherever they may consuming content. So that's the biggest dilemma that we as marketers have to deal with.
Yeah, everyone's a marketer now, it seems, especially with ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
We're certainly at risk of sort of being in the situation where we're bombarded with content that may seem relevant, but it's just automated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're sort of at risk of falling victim to that situation. And I think that it's happening more and more. There's just so much content out there, and a lot of it, like you said, is just marketing auto-generated content, and it doesn't necessarily serve the customer as much as
Yeah.
it.
And I do believe that's why video is going to have much more impact in the coming years, because I think written content, you can't tell if it was written by AI. I'm sure there are third-party tools that are coming out that you can just copy paste and see if it's been repurposed from somewhere else. But if you're actually the face of the brand, getting in front of a camera and providing insights and tips and tricks to your target customers, that can be reproduced. And sure, there are going to be some AI that can mimic the way you talk, and you can probably do some of that, but people can still tell an authentic person in front of a camera genuinely just talking. And I think more and more reason why people are liking and engaging with a person over a brand is for that reason, because people tend to follow a person more than a brand, and they trust that person and their authenticity, their thought process, and all of those things do come to play in how some people follow or comment and do things, right? And that's why if you look at most of the big brands, and whether they're B2B or whatnot, right? If you go and look on LinkedIn, they probably have like 1,500 people follow that company, but then you look at their CEO has 15,000, 20,000 plus followers on their individual personal profile, because they have something to say and they're following that individual more than the actual brand itself. So I would say content in the form of video is probably going to have a much bigger impact in the coming years, just because of the fact that it's a lot harder to create those. And then also people are actually making a personal connection when they're seeing a talking head is giving them some insights or advice.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is a little scary, I will say, with all the deep fakes that you can see. I mean, some of those look really real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a while though until this environment can be reproduced with AI.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean?
true.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
good
true.
for us. I mean, we're what, 82 episodes into this podcast, and so far no one's replicated us. So
That we
Yeah.
know of. Yes. Oh man, that's interesting stuff. I could probably talk about that all day, but I know we have this other topic here. So marketing automation
Mm-hmm.
and data integration. This is extremely important because you don't want to automate with bad data, but
Mm-hmm.
the role of marketing automation tools in gathering and leveraging data for lead nurturing, personalized communication, and improve customer experiences.
Yeah, most certainly. I think when we talked about the growth blueprint, I mean the growth formula framework, that is the entire customer journey, right? Everything from them coming to know about your business or your product or service, all the way to them becoming a customer and continuing to consume your product or service. You want to be able to have a platform, your single source of truth, where you track the entire customer journey, all the touch points, and where they're getting frictions and where they're dropping off. All that has to be managed and measured and optimized. So marketing automation is nothing but a tool. The better and easier it is to operate and use it and leverage it, the better it is, right? And so the goal of data and all of that is, if you're collecting customer interactions and you're also providing them with the content and different things like that to serve them with information, you want to know how well engaged are they? Are they consuming the information you're presenting to them? And where are they consuming that information? And are they taking the decisions that you're expecting them to take? If you want them to go watch a webinar, if you want them to go book a demo, or if you want them to go, watch a specific episode of a podcast that you produce that answers specific questions, you want to know if what you're asking them to do is actually being done. And then if they're on your websites, you need to know where are they on your website, and if they're not taking the action that you're expecting them to do, you need to be able to trigger a certain action within your marketing automation platform that can propel that person to go do that next step in the buying process. So that's essentially what the goal of a marketing automation technology is. Again, data is everywhere, but it's not about just collecting a bunch of information, but it's all about the insights that you can get from it to see, well, how can I optimize my current customer journey to optimize for everywhere I have bottlenecks? Maybe in the beginning stage, might be how do I improve my traffic source and then make sure that I'm getting the most qualified visitors to my website. The next problem might be like, hey, I have people coming to my website, but they do not take any next step at all. They're all leaving. What can I do about the bounce rate? What can I do about getting them to convert into some sort of an inquiry? Where is that bottleneck? What is the friction that I have on our site? What can I make? What can I do on there in terms of maybe changing the verbiage, maybe the color of the call to actions, maybe the offer? There's a lot of things to be considered in terms of what, maybe even the source of traffic. All has a lot to do with whether or not people convert into an inquiry. And then that post conversion, what am I doing to make sure that this customer, this prospect never get lost, and that we're staying top of mind with that person? And do I have the proper nurture sequences in place that I can automate that touch points so that this person is continued to be touched on over time, so that when it's time for them to make a purchase decision, they are able to make that decision, and you've provided them all the educational resources that they need to make that decision that they need to do. So that's essentially the use of our marketing automation. It's not automation for the sake of automation, kind of similar to what I said about content creation. A lot of times people are so quick in jumping to go get a technology for the sake of, oh, we need automation. But do you truly understand what you're trying to automate? And do you have a really mapped out process of what exactly the customer journey looks like? What are all the touch points? Where does technology would enable that conversion point to be more efficient? Where does technology enable us to win? Mm-hmm. And then making sure that, is this technology going to solve that problem? So don't just try to poke a hole with the technology and call it a day, but you really need to know what is the problem that you're trying to solve for, and then and is this problem even worth solving for? And if so, is it the right technology to use for?
So it's a great point. So you've been doing this for 18 years, right? So
yes.
Obviously a lot has changed in marketing automation over that period of time, and probably a lot more in the past few years versus the prior 10 or 15 years. Where do you think we're going? Are we going to be able to someday just tell our website, like, this is the problem I'm solving for, this is what I want, this is the end game, like, I want someone to sign up here, or I want them to register here, or I want them to sign up for my newsletter, or whatever it is, and then the website or the automation tool will just kind of figure out, based on what that visitor is doing, what it needs to do to get them to, what it needs to show them, or what it needs to present to them in order to get them to do that. I kind of feel like that's where we're headed, right?
It is certainly getting there. So in 2022 inbound conference, HubSpot announced something called campaign like a campaign builder tool. Basically, it's an automation tool that you can prompt it to create certain things. It's not anywhere near where it needs to be to do what you described, but it is a first attempt by a massive company trying to figure out how do you make that process of building campaigns and workflows and everything else a little bit easier for a marketer. So I think we're only probably a year or two away from somebody's able to do that, or create templatized programs that has a lot of components built into it that you can provide prompts and it can fill in the blank, right? So that is definitely the future. But again, I think at the end of the day, you still need a human intervention. You have to have human beings kind of looking at the performance of the campaigns and making decisions on some of those things. And I'm sure technology can provide some insights and say, hey, I think the reason why the conversion sucks is because your call to action is this, or I think the reason why your bounce rate is high is because of this, right? So you can provide insights, but you still need some creative mind to go think through and say, well, use some human psychology and say, well, are we using the proper call to action? Do we provide them a real value proposition here, asking them to convert on that page? So all of those things have to be thought through. But who knows? Maybe 1 year ago, nobody thought about ChatGPT and how that's going to change the world. And where we are today, in less than a year later, it's a massive shift. And I'm just even dumbfounded myself in the amount of tech SaaS products came out with some sort of an AI component to it in the last 12 months is incredible. So who knows? I'm sure somebody's in their basement building out a software right now that probably will be brought to market in the next few months. And then we might be surprised and we're like, wow, there goes our prediction. It's already a reality.
Yeah, I agree. It's crazy because that's how fast everything happens.
It certainly is wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And there probably definitely is somebody in their basement. That's a really good point. Like, everybody's creating a SaaS these days. I mean, shoot, I might even create a SaaS. Why not? But like, I don't know. What do you think people need to do? Like, what's the main thing they should be thinking about with automation? Like, if you're just getting started, you don't know what you're automating, like maybe you have a bunch of automations going. What's the most important thing that you should be automating?
Yeah, I think oftentimes I tell people do the unscalable thing first. A lot of times, we come across a lot of clients who went and bought a technology and automated some onboarding process and expected the automation to do things. And we would ask, well, have you had some sales conversation with this prospect? Why do you think you want to use this automation to make them go through this pre-qualification form that's about 17 fields, and hoping that you can funnel them into this right sequence and then automate the nurture? What made you think that they were going to even complete that 17-step form? Because what you really want is to know like real interaction with your customers. So do some non-scalable things first. Have conversation with customers, find out what relevant information is they're looking for, send them personalized emails to them with content assets that are on your website that's going to answer their questions, see how well they respond to that. Do those things first before you jump into just try to automate everything. And a lot of times I think the biggest mistake we all make is we think, oh, we're going to scale by automation. And a lot of times then you're losing some of that human touch points, and you're overcompensating for some of those with just data and automation. And I think that's a disservice to what we're all doing. But I'm all for automation, but I think I'm also not at the expense of eliminating personalization and human touches.
Definitely. It's an important point because, as you said, people connect with people, right? Not brands or bots or anything else. But yeah, it's especially important now with all the bots out there and click farms and all the problems like bad data. I don't know. Anything else you would add on this topic, David, in terms of marketing and automation? Because I feel like what we're doing at BDEX is really important because I've seen so many times people will turn on an automation and something's missing, something's wrong. And it's typically bad data. It comes down to bad data. So like in terms of automation, it's really important to have quality data. So, I mean, what would you say about that, David?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think it's just a matter of making sure that you understand what you're tracking, and then you're doing as much as possible to understand not only what your visitors at your website are doing or whatever, but what your existing customers are doing as well. Who are your existing customers, and even backtracking to the point of like, okay, how did those customers learn about you? And if you know how those customers learn about you, then you can understand where you need to be concentrating. Who are those customers? And so it's understanding as much about your existing customers as possible. People don't poll their customers, and when they do, they make the mistake of, like you said, giving them a 17-question form. You get this form and it says, okay, you're on step 1. There's 10 steps and there's 5 questions in each step, and it's like no one's going to complete that. We've talked about this before. It's sometimes it's just asking one question. Sometimes you just need one question, and more likely than not, your existing customers are willing to respond to that one question. And it's one question you might ask them once a quarter. But as you're doing that, you're getting more and more information about your existing customers, because the more you can know about your existing customers, the more you can figure out how to find more people just like them.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, on that note, I'm sort of curious. I heard you mention HubSpot. You went to the Inbound conference. So that maybe is one tool that I don't know, maybe you use it or you don't, but what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack, Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of comes down to the use case, and all of those use cases have its own tools that might be necessary. But I think as a business, you need to have like single source of truth. So you have to decide for the organization, what is that going to be? Is it going to be our CRM? Is it going to be our marketing automation platform? Where is it going to be? All that information is going to be residing, right? So that's the primary tech stack that you need to solve for. That if it could be an all-in-one technology like HubSpot, that might be the best case. But if your organization isn't so complicated and you don't have a lot of resources, and you don't have an entire MarTech team, or whether it be a marketing operation or sales operation team member that can go tinker with technology and integration and all of those things, you want to have less connections and integrations as possible, and have very few technology connecting, right? Because that way you have few sources of failures. But as the company grows, then you probably need additional resources. But because we're more in the marketing sector, we do have a lot of research tools that we use on the marketing tech side. Industry analysis tools, we have competitor analysis tools, topic research tools, and things of that nature that we leverage. that helps you to be more efficient in your ability to identify your customers, identify the content that you need to create, and then measuring how well that content is performing. So you got to have some tech stack for that. So we use tools like SEMrush and Google Analytics and Google Search Console, and there's so many other data sources that we use to find those things. And then obviously you need a sales tool at the end of the day to sell, whether that be a Salesforce or a Pipedrive, or even HubSpot has its own sales CRM. So leveraging that to make sure that your salespeople are enabled, right? Because I think the biggest mistake most sales organizations make is they think of sales CRM as a data collecting and storing and tracking activities, but it's more than that. It's an actual sales enablement resource. Can I make my salesperson's time more efficient by giving them things that would automate certain things that they do? Because I don't know if you know this, about 60 to 70% of a salesperson's time is spent on non-revenue producing activities. These are prospecting, making their list of to-do list, sending manual emails, writing a recap email, those sort of things. There are certain tools that we use for our organization. We use something called Ofoma, which is a call intelligence platform that sits on every call that we're on, records the entire conversation, transcribes it, gives you a summary of it. You can easily take that summary and turn it into a recap email and send to a client or a prospect or any sort of a call that you just got off of. And then that enables a rep to be much more efficient and not have to sit there and remember everything that was discussed. And then the call history is stored directly into your CRM, so that data is stored, and someone else who might be working that account in the future can also see that entire conversation history. So sales enablement is what you need to look at, not like, oh, we have a CRM where we just gather the data, right? So anything you can do to empower your salesperson to do more in less time and do so efficiently and with more precision, that's a tech stack, right? So yes, I'm a little biased toward HubSpot just because of the fact that that's technology that our firm runs most of our clients' campaigns. So that is definitely the reason why I may have brought up HubSpot multiple times. But regardless, right, you got to know what the business problem you're trying to solve for, and the technology is just an enabler, and it's not it's not the end all. So you got to make a decision on the technology that's going to be most useful for your business case.
All great points. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good points. I like the whole concentration on sales enablement because it's important. We've found that in the past as well, where we're looking at what our sales team is doing, and it's like, okay, well, if they're doing this, that, and all these different things that you listed, then how much time are they actually spending, with potential prospects, and that's sort of the risk as well.
Yeah, you want to empower them to be on calls as much as they can, and you want them to be able to focus on the conversation and not necessarily have to worry about taking notes. And most often they're spending a lot of their energy kind of trying to remember what they've discussed and recapping and doing all those things. And if you can speed up some of those things, then definitely leverage AI when it's possible. That actually is going to make them sell more, and that should be your focus. So don't make the CRM a friction point for your salesperson to do that. And oftentimes, if you enforce a lot of to-dos on them, like tasks and everything else, but you could use marketing automation to automate some of those things. So just to give you an example, like if a lead comes in and lead gets assigned to a rep, you can immediately not only send them an email alert, assign a task, create an automatic deal, and put that deal into an intro call stage, and then have some pre-made templates be loaded up in his CRM that's ready for him to take the action on. So if you do those things, it's just almost become a cadence that he has to follow. So there are technology that enables you to do that. So the goal is, how do I empower the salesperson to be focused on the one thing, which is just be in front of a prospect and have more conversation. The more conversations they're having, the better they are at selling, and not less time trying to check off tasks that they've completed or doing a bunch of to-do lists.
Yeah, HubSpot's really good about all of that. And you mentioned Ofoma, which I don't think anyone on the show has ever mentioned Ofoma. So it's like it sounds like qualitative data analysis. So they're taking people's phone calls. Are they like finding patterns in those phone calls?
Yeah,
so like when I use this word, yeah.
It does have a lot of those components that it can actually even give you a score on your call. So it automatically listens to your sales conversation. You can tell if it was a discovery call, if it's a proposal presentation call, or if it's a client call, right? And then that's actually means just like a client success call, customer success call. So based on that call type, it actually looks for the pattern. So it would tell you what percentage of the time was the prospect talking, what percent of the time was the salesperson talking, and how many filler words did you use, and did you ask all the open-ended questions, did you really listen for the pain? And then you can also train this tool to actually listen for competitors, pain points, and all of those things, so that it over time will tell you this competitor was brought up 7 times in the conversation, or they brought up this pain multiple times, but the prospect talked only 30% of the time, and then the rep talked 70% of the time. Well, you should be talking less and you should be asking more questions, and they give you a score at the end of the call. So it becomes much easier for the sales manager to do the coaching calls. They can just quickly run a report and have that conversation and go straight to the point where they actually were struggling the most, and not necessarily have to listen to endless hours of calls from previous weeks and have to spend that energy trying to coach them. So that's the benefit of it. I'm sure, Gong and many other technologies available that does this, and Ofoma is definitely one of the up and comers that's been around for probably about 2 years now.
Very cool.
Yeah. Someone once mentioned Gong before as well, but I haven't checked out Ofoma. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to be something that any organization want to implement, right? Whether that's Ofoma or Gong or anything. But I think what you need to have is how can I provide some support for my salesperson to be able to recap the email or listen to a previous call. So for me, like, I want to go back and listen to a previous call, or at least go to the pain point section and know exactly what was discussed, so I can be much more prepared on my follow-up call to recap all the concerns that they mentioned. So that makes that conversation much more relevant, and they'll appreciate the fact that you remembered some of those from the previous discussion as well.
That's pretty interesting. I think it's always cool when we can talk about a little bit of qualitative data on the Deconstructing Data podcast. But Samuel, I think we've covered all these topics, and we have a little bit of time for our post-topic questions, if you don't mind. So if you could go back to when you first came into the marketing and advertising industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Man, I wish somebody told me that it's not just a theory and head knowledge, that you need to actually start experimenting and doing things and see what works and do more of it, and and stop wasting time on things that don't really work. I wish somebody had told me that.
Good point. Yeah.
That is some good advice. And going off of that, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from past jobs or this current job that you think everyone should know?
Yeah, most certainly. I think the biggest challenge of most marketers, and it's true for anybody, I think we're all guilty of over-calculating, overthinking, and over-analyzing everything. But when it comes to marketing, and even for sales, it's all about execution. So you can strategize, you can think, you can plan all you want, but if you don't execute it, right, you don't know what's not working. Way back in the day, we used to be in print business. We used to do a lot of printing, custom collaterals and things for our clients in the early days of our marketing agency. And we had to review every word, every sentence to make sure there was no spelling mistakes on that sales collateral, because it would cost you thousands of dollars to reprint it. But today you can't spend hours proofreading every blog post and looking for every incorrect grammatical mistakes. You need to be executing at a faster pace, because you need to iterate very fast. So you don't know what's going to resonate. You got to post that blog as fast as you can. You got to publish that video as fast as you can. You got to see how people engage and repurpose and redo and reiterate, right? So that's the biggest lesson that I would give any marketing team members. Execute as fast as you can. Don't overcomplicate. Don't overthink. And a lot of times, I know there are some organizations that have to go through some legal approvals and things like that before they can publish certain content, especially in the financial sector or health sector. But as much as possible, if it's not going to be required to have some sort of a compliance or policy review need to be done, execute, produce, publish, analyze, and iterate as fast as you can. And that's the best lesson I've learned by having worked with thousands of customers over the years.
That's good advice. Just ship it, get it out.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. The current environment is much more forgiving, right? I mean, it's not, it's not the way it used to be. It's a lot easier to publish something and then change it, edit it, whatever later, once you realize there's something needs editing. Because it's easier, we need to make sure that we recognize that and just get the content out, right?
And I would even argue, like, hey, a little spelling error is good, because it tells me you're not AI. Because I post on LinkedIn every single day. And of course, I have lots of spelling errors, but people know I'm a human. They know it's real.
Yeah.
And they've said that even in cold outreach emails, if you put a misspelled word in the subject line, you actually have a higher open rate. So
It's true. Yeah, I see it
Yeah.
all the time because
Just
people are like, "Who is this person that misspelled that word?" They're gonna click on it.
Yeah. 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 It appears to be you automate that, but it still appears to be much like it's a real person versus an
'cause
automation. Yeah.
we human beings kind of like, well, this person misspelled the word. They probably don't know how to spell the word and just open the email just to see who they are.
That's a good
Helps
point.
Great.
helps with the open rate.
One more real quick question, Samuel. So, what secrets, tips, and tricks can you share that will prepare us for the future in data and advertising?
I don't know if I have like a secret or anything I can say, but I would say be open to change. I think one of the biggest challenge most people have, especially as I deal with a lot of business leaders, they're all stuck in their old ways and they're not willing to change. As you know, technology innovation is happening at a very fast, rapid pace. I think we need to be willing to change and adapt things, try new things, and not be afraid of it. That will be my advice, especially going into this new year. Be open and experiment. Use their tools like ChatGPT or anything else to figure out how can I improve myself. How can I do some things that I do manually today could be automated or improved, and be able to do things faster and better.
100%.
Yep, that's great advice for 2024. Embrace the change because there's going to be a lot of it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Always going to happen.
definitely. Well, in
Awesome.
closing, Samuel, would you like to tell our listeners how they can find you?
Most certainly. So obviously oneims.com is definitely oneims.com is probably where you want to go. And we have an entire resource library that goes into details on this growth formula framework. So if you go to oneims.com/grow, GROW, you can find some resources and tips and some resources we made available there. And definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content around it. And I also publish a podcast myself. It's called Coffee with Closers. So where I interview entrepreneurs and business leaders. So if you YouTube Coffee with Closers with Samuel, you should find me on YouTube as well.
All right, Coffee with Closers. Everyone heard that. Go search for Coffee with Closers. But audience members, we hope you'll also check out BeatX's Omni IQ. And I'm going to pull up a QR code. If you're watching on video, you can scan this QR code. It'll take you over to Omni IQ. Otherwise, just simply go to beatx.com, click the try for free button, and you can create an audience. Listen, you can learn about your audience. You simply take a CSV file of your first party customer data, you upload it into Omni IQ, and you're gonna get not confidential. You're gonna get some. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm spacing right now. You're gonna get free complimentary
Complimentary.
analytics
There you
on
go.
your data. So once you create your account, like I said, upload your CSV, you get gender, birth year, household income on your data, no credit card required. And it's just try it out. You're going to see it, and then you're going to start to learn about your audience, and you can upgrade to learn even more about your audience. But then also you can expand that audience. So, definitely check it out. And we'd love to hear from you as well about the show. So please reach out to us at info@beatx.com if you would like to suggest any guests or you have any feedback for us. Just share your qualitative data with us and we'll make it better for you. But thank you all for being here. And thanks again, Samuel.
Yeah, proof that Jesse is not an AI.
I am not an AI.
None of us are.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thanks for joining us, Samuel.
Awesome. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.